starting to slow down with people joining. So I think it's about time we get going. I don't want to waste anybody's time waiting. For those of you that are here already. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Mr. Conti. I'm the principal here at Grand Avenue for some seventh grade families. This might be the first time we're meeting, so welcome. This is an amazing, amazing place. We will, in an amazing district, and we are going to support you in whatever your family's choice is in this endeavor that we're about to embark on for the 2020-2021 school year. We have a great staff here. Obviously, as I said, I'm the principal here at Grand Avenue. This actually will be my 9th year here in Belmore Merrick's Grand Avenue Middle School, but actually my 15th year in the district. I was an assistant principal at Merrick Avenue for 4 years and an assistant principal at Calhoun for 2 before I came here. I have a pretty good grasp of the community, the 7th through 12 experience. My team brings a lot of information and expertise in their own individual backgrounds and are really great at what they do. Joining us today, actually on the screen you can see to the right, is Mr. Riccardi. And Mr. Riccardi is actually going to be your 7th grade assistant principal. I just wanted to give him a quick sec to pop on and introduce himself and say a few words. Mr. Riccardi? You got to unmute, Mr. Riccardi. Unmute.
Not a good start. Sorry about that. Good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to meet you all and your children in the near future. I can't wait. As Mr. Conti said, I'm going to be your child's 7th grade assistant principal. Some of my responsibilities are I'm in charge of English, social studies, the arts, music, and art. I'm in charge of the schedule. So if you have any concerns with your child's schedule in the upcoming year, I'm the guy you would definitely contact. I'm also in charge of technology. So during this unique time, you have any concerns about technology, any extenuating circumstances, you can definitely reach out to me and I can help you out with that. So again, I look forward to meeting you all and your children real soon. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Riccardi.
Thank you.
So we do have 2 assistant principals. Mr. Riccardi, as he mentioned, is our 7th grade assistant principal. He is away. He's probably going to leave us shortly and continue on his day. We also have 8th grade assistant principal, Mr. Malika, who may pop in a little bit later on. You may see screens pop up from Mr. DiTomaso, our superintendent, or Mr. Harrington, our assistant superintendent in charge of curriculum and instruction. They may want to pop in and say a few words. So as they join, I may just introduce them and interrupt what we're doing. We do have these 2 assistant principals, as I said. They are grade specific, but it doesn't really matter. We work as a team. We are pretty much interchangeable, the 3 of us. We help each other out no matter what it is. If a student or parent has an issue, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. So without further ado, let's get into why you're here. This very first quick slide that I put up is a list of some extensive subcommittees that have been working tirelessly to try to craft some plans and procedures that we've had to put in place because of this crazy pandemic that we're all facing. These extremely uncertain times make a school opening or providing the best educational opportunity for students a little bit challenging. But if anybody can do it, this district can do it. And it's not just this district, it's this district's community. Embedded in all of these subcommittees are a cross-section of teachers, administrators, paraprofessionals, parents out in the community. It's just a really good cross-section, and they've all worked tirelessly throughout the summer to try to make the best possible situation for our students here at Grand Avenue and the entire Belmore Merrick Central High School District. So I just wanted to thank them for that, and I want to thank you for your continued support and trust. It's not always easy transitioning from an elementary district here to a middle school district, and I'm sure on a normal year, 7th grade parents tend to have a little bit of anxiety built up about their elementary school students coming here to the middle school. And this year has just exacerbated that exponentially. So for those of you that have reached out with questions, and for those of you that have worked on these committees, I just want to thank you for your time, for your effort, and everything else. Continuing on with those thanks, I mentioned the questions. Throughout the summer, we've received a good number of questions, and we welcome those. That's the way we get better. That's the way we sometimes address things that maybe we didn't think of. So I very much appreciate it. All the questions that came in on the survey, I tried to include answers to all of them in this PowerPoint and this webinar presentation. So just bear with us and we will try to get through all of it. Again, your partnership, your trust, your appreciation. We can't do this if we're not working together. Working together is the only way we can truly, truly succeed in this educational endeavor that you're about to embark on with your 7th grade student. So we welcome you again. We can't wait to see you in whatever fashion your family chooses. But we just want to make sure you have the best information that you can make the best decision for your family. My job here today is not in any way, shape, or form to convince you one way or the other. My job is to give you information so you can make the best decisions for you, your child, and your family. So as we continue on, we decided that it would be best to provide a little bit of information. The information would then answer a lot of the questions that were asked, and then there are some slides embedded in here where I actually took some specific questions that were asked the parents about different things that I present. So it'll kind of be twofold, and hopefully I can answer as many questions as I possibly can by doing it both ways. So let's get right to it. I decided to begin with talking about the learning models. I think there is some confusion out there about what the learning models actually are and what is being offered or how they're actually going to look and feel. We are actually starting the first 2 weeks of school here at Grand Avenue and all of Belmore Merrick in the hybrid model. The hybrid model is a way that we can break up a school. This school has a little over 900 students in it enrolled for next school year. It's a way to break the school in half and bring half the students in so we can test out the procedures that we're putting in place, the policies that we're putting in place. The way we decided to break it up was A to L or M to Z. So first half of the alphabet on a couple of days and the second half on the other couple of days. And that breakup was chosen because we have 5 districts that actually have to work together. There are 4 elementary school districts and 1 high school district. And because of students where you may have some students in one district and some younger students in another, in order to make sure that they were on the same days and off the same days, we decided to break up the alphabet the same way in all 5 districts to make sure that those students were on the same schedule instead of families trying to jockey 2 or 3 different schedules and making a lot of confusion for families. So I think that was a very good and conscious decision to be made. Under the hybrid model, in those first 2 weeks, students will come to school 2 times a week. The days that they're not in school, so let's say Mr. Conti is going to be in the A through L group. So in the first week, he's going to go to school on Tuesday and Thursday. But on Wednesday and Friday, when I'm home, that doesn't mean I have the day off. I will be logging in and seeing my classes being taught remotely, just like this webcam we're using right now. We'll be watching classes remotely the days that we're not here, following the same 9-period schedule at the same exact times. So 2 days in, 2 days at home, but the days home, you follow your schedule the same way, just doing it in a virtual way. After the 2 weeks, if all goes well in those 2 weeks and things, the procedures and students and everybody's following what we need to follow and everything's working out well, we're going to try to bring students in full in person on September 21st. That means all students A through Z will come in every single day. Without holidays, it would be a 5-day school week. And that would start on Monday, the 21st. And of course, it would be a regular school day following a 9-period schedule. Our third learning model technical difficulty, sorry. Our third model is the alternative virtual learning model. Any family can choose the alternative learning, virtual learning model. Some people want to call that the remote model. That's when students are staying home and accessing their education through the internet virtually. Any family can choose it. Students would be home 5 days a week, and 5 days a week they would have to log into their regular scheduled classes at their regular times and follow their schedules. So in every single classroom throughout this entire school district, we've installed these web cameras. So they can actually access their classes from home 5 days a week with their teachers. I put in that last kind of double asterisk bullet there. It says possible remote school. We are looking at the moment, we're trying to see if we can figure it out based on some teachers that have some issues about not being able to come in and matching them up with students that might not be able to come in, and creating a remote school completely. It still would be Belmont Merrick teachers, but for kind of matching them up. It is a pretty big monstrous kind of undertaking to make that happen. And we've only just begun trying to make that happen based on what we have back with students and faculty. So we're not promising that, but I just wanted to let you know that that's a possibility, and we are exploring trying to do that. And as soon as I get more information on that, of course, I will get that out to you as quick as I possibly can. So we have quite a few questions about the learning models, and let's try to get through some of those, and hopefully I can knock off a bunch of answers for you. First question, is the district locked into a current plan? The school district itself is not locked into any plan. We have a plan in place right now. As I said, the first 2 weeks under the hybrid model, and after that, we would like to bring students in as a full option, with students being here 5 days a week. However, as I said earlier, if things are not going well, if for some reason we can't maintain the distance, if we can't, the procedures we put in place I'm gonna have to wave because my light went off, sorry. If, the procedures aren't working properly and things don't work out well, we may have to stay in a hybrid or move to something else. If for some reason there's a tremendous spike, which right now the numbers are 0.002 infection rate in Nassau County. If they spike out of control, the governor may make us all be remote. But at this time, we have a pretty good handle on what we have. So there's a plan in place, but there is we're not locked into any specific plan. For those of you at home, you may have just realized that a new face popped up on the screen. That's our superintendent of schools. Of course, it says Mike Harrington, but it is actually Mr. D. Tomaso. So he must be on Mr. Harrington's computer, and I'm sure he's just going to want to give you a couple of quick words.
You see two Mr. Harringtons there. It's always good to be Mr. Harrington, believe me. Certainly, that's not a bad thing. Welcome, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Conte. I'm just going to take a few minutes. Sorry, I was at MAMS. We are sort of going back and forth across the meetings. So happy to welcome you to the Belmont Merrick Central High School District. You are entering, and if you have not been in the district before, you are coming to one of the finest school districts in all of New York State. I am the proud and honored superintendent, and I say that, I think probably every superintendent likes to say that about their school district, certainly, but I say that with facts, by every statistical measure and every, certainly every survey that's out there and every publication that runs best schools in New York State, Belmont Merrick can be found high on that list, and Grand Avenue as well in terms of middle schools. You come to a school that puts kids first and always in decision making, and that's what Belmont Merrick does as a whole. We are about kids and families, and that's what we will continue to do regardless of what the situation is in front of us. I would be remiss if I didn't thank the Board of Education for being the kind of board that supports what happens in the district and really does support kids and families and all the things that we can do to make their educational experience and opportunities here in Belmont Merrick second to none. So certainly thanks to them. Thank you to the central administrative team who's working incredibly hard always, particularly during this time, our directors and all of our building administrative teams. You know, the district overall theme is one voice, one message, and it's never been more important now, never more powerful now that our administrative team is working so hard to answer the questions and to make sure that we provide for a safe reopening to school, which we know that kids need, you know, so desperately to certainly to be back in school. I want to thank Mr. Conte and his administrative team. Again, they are working day and night. They are living and breathing. We go to sleep with this. They wake up with this. All of us do, because we know how important this is and how crucial this is to kids and families in Belmont Merrick. And I want to thank him for that, because the work that they are putting in is just amazing. And it shows that kind of dedication that they have had in this community for many years, and they continue to have. So thank you, Mr. Conte, certainly. I want to thank all of our parents. You know, one of the things that is special about Belmont Merrick that is not that way in all districts is the relationship we enjoy with our parents. Staff, school, and parents, staff and parents enjoy this special relationship. It's been that way. I've been here for 23 years. I started as a young teacher at MEPM, you know, many moons ago. And it has always been that way. And it's only been strengthened in the last number of years as we value our parents and their support and their input and their suggestions and their fair criticisms and all of those things. So thank you to our parents. Thank you for participating today. I want to thank parents for the overwhelming number of emails we have received in support of the district. We could agree or disagree about, you know, the plans or the plans that will be put in place. But certainly I am thankful because so many of you recognize the work that's being put in and the really extensive planning that we are doing, which again is not happening in all districts, and it's not even close. I want to thank our parents for sending us, you know, emails that have suggestions and that have certainly fair criticisms, and we appreciate that. We take that in, and we certainly recognize those things, and it certainly helps give us input in our decision making in the future. So thank you for all of those things. And again, our staff, when I mean staff, our teachers, administrators, clerical, nurses, paras, custodians have all been incredible during these last several months and have all taken part in the planning as we move forward. So I'm very thankful for that. It's just the kind of place that it is that we work together. And as our theme is this year, staying strong together, well, we're certainly going to need that. We're going to need your partnership as we move forward during these during times that we have never seen before, during and doing things that we have never done before, trying to accomplish things that we've never put in place before. So I thank you in advance for your support and appreciate that partnership more than ever. I do want to take a minute to talk about our plans, certainly our decision to open up in a hybrid model. And that certainly brought some questions for some people who wanted to open up from day one. I just would hope that you could recognize that opening up school, and if we speak specifically about Grand, about 850 students, maybe 200 staff members, in any given year is difficult. We know that it works like clockwork and it's smooth opening, that kids are where they're supposed to be on day one, that buses are dropping kids off, that, you know, classes are starting from the moment kids walk in, that, you know, there is a familiarity with what we do. And it's because Belmont Merrick does school openings really, really well. And it's due to our extensive planning and communication with each other and with our parents. So on any given year, that is a challenge to open up school. Given this year and the added unprecedented challenges, the new procedures and protocols and routines, we are entering a new world in education that none of us have seen before. Our extensive plans, as confident as I am in them, have not been put in place yet. So we need that time to evaluate our plans, to be able to adjust those plans. Because at the end of the day, we're going to decide to either stay in a hybrid model or move to full. We have hopes that we can move kids back to full 5 days. We have a goal to do that. I think every school district should have that goal. Whether we can do that or not is still to be determined. We need to evaluate those days, and you will get an update every day during those first days from your principals about how it's working, how arrival and dismissal is working, how staggering hallway times are keeping kids distance. You know, how has it been in classrooms? That will help us to determine how we move forward. And I need to be really clear on this. It is the safety of students and staff that will determine whether or not we can do that. Can the building handle the additional students that we bring in? And are our plans good enough to be able to do so? Can kids, of maybe no fault of their own, handle the strict guidelines that we have to put in place in order to open? Will they own mask wearing? Will they understand that that's all part of how we open up school? That is ultimately what's going to determine how we move forward. I realize that if we stay in the hybrid model, that will disappoint people. There's no question. I realize that if we move from the hybrid model to the full model, that will disappoint people. And I certainly recognize that those people that wanted to open up in a remote way and thought that the state would go in that direction, that is also disappointing to them as well. I certainly feel that. I certainly understand. But I'm asking everyone to be flexible and to know that the decision will be made, that a recommendation will come from our school building leaders and will come to me, and I will then make a recommendation to the Board of Education to either stay in a hybrid model or to go forward. And I realize that is certainly a difficult thing to do. As I sit here right now, I want to say again, it is our hope to do that. It is our hope to do that, but we need to make sure that safety and health are first and foremost. Again, I am so thankful of your participation and for your questions. We put out a frequently asked questions sheet, an initial about 400 questions we answered about a week ago. All the buildings are answering these questions. Certainly they are becoming more building specific. You know, what's life going to look like at Grand Avenue, at Merrick Avenue, at our various schools, which is why you'll start to get continuous communication from Mr. Conte and his team. So again, thank you, parents. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your patience. And we will look forward to seeing you soon, and certainly look forward to seeing your kids on the 8th and then the second group on the 9th. So I say be well. Mr. Conte, thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mr. DiTomaso. So, back to where we were, answering some questions about the learning models. Second question I had was, can we change to the alternate virtual learning model after school starts? So the short answer to that is yes. We will be monitoring how things go. You will, of course, as a parent, be monitoring how things go with your own children. And if you choose or you don't feel as though things are going well and you'd like to move to that point, we will be sending out a second survey, probably the second week of school. And if you'd like to choose that alternate virtual learning model and have your students stay home and logging in from home because you don't feel comfortable, that of course will be your right as a family. Am I locked into the alternate virtual learning model choice? At this point, we are trying to make as many decisions as possible based on the number of students that are staying home and the number of students that are opting to come in based on that. So we are asking families that if they are choosing that alternative virtual learning model, that they commit to that for the first 10 weeks of school, the first academic quarter, so quarter one, so we can address our needs here appropriately. So if for some reason that needs to change, that would be a little bit trickier. It's easier to take kids and move them to the remote than move them in. We're going to try to rebalance classes based on who's coming home to hopefully keep the least amount of students in each classroom based on who's staying home. So if that keeps changing, that's going to make things a little bit tricky for us. Will remote students be able to ask questions? Absolutely. Unlike today's webinar, that would be an interactive class session. As I said, these webcams are installed in each classroom, and each teacher is probably going to handle it, slightly different. But they have been receiving some professional development. They have been talking as a professional community as to how they can meet the needs of the students that would be at home. And that might be at a few times throughout the lesson to turn and actually speak to the camera and listen to the screen and say, are there any questions from those, kids at home? How are you guys handling it? Do you understand? Are you struggling? What's going on? And get that feedback so they can then adjust their learning, their teaching, I should say, as the lesson continues. It's not going to be as free-flowing as, of course, if they were sitting there, but there will definitely be times throughout the lesson that those students will be addressed and asked for their input and their level of understanding of what's going on. Other questions. What will my child see on the camera if they're at home, whether it's the hybrid or the alternate virtual learning model? They will see a wide range of things. Each teacher or each lesson will be a little bit different. If you're in a science class and a teacher is doing a demonstration, I'm sure that the camera is going to be pointed at where the demonstration is taking place so the students can see that demonstration live as if they were in a class. Other teachers might be doing a lecture, and it might be the comfort level of that teacher to put the camera on themselves. So, gotta wave my hands, my motion sensors are going off. So, hello. Sorry about that. So if they're doing a lecture and the teacher feels comfortable, they may have the camera just on them. So the students, again, as if they were sitting in their seats in the class, would see the teacher. Other teachers may feel it more necessary to be sharing their computer screen or their smartboard screen, and they might have to do a screen share of that in particular, so the students can actually see that screencastify or that screen share of what's on the smartboard. So they may see a wide range, but in each one of those instances, the audio is always on. So you will hear a live transmission of what the teacher is saying. What they may see from class to class or lesson to lesson may differentiate a little bit. Okay. Will attendance be taken for all? Absolutely. Students, obviously attendance in education is one of the most important things for success. Without regular attendance, there are gaps, and that makes it difficult for any student to stay up with their materials and teachers able to provide the best education. So attendance will be taken whether your child is here on site in the building or if they are in the alternate virtual learning choice. Why isn't the hybrid 2 consecutive days? So this question came in and it was threaded through quite a number. Some parents, I guess, thought it would be more beneficial to have students in, let's say, Monday, Tuesday, and then the second half of the alphabet, maybe Thursday, Friday. And we looked at this and kind of put it together and dissected it a lot of different ways. And ultimately, the decision was made to go to this model where you would come in 2 non-consecutive days. And the reason for that is very specifically to not have such a long gap in between when students would be here in the building. So if a child was here Monday, Tuesday, they wouldn't be back in the building live with their teacher until the following Monday. And that's a pretty long gap. So we decided to break that up a little bit so students had a little bit more of a continuity to their instruction. One day in, one day hybrid, another day in. So that's why we chose that differentiation. Will students be changing classes? Yes, there is a very specific reason in elementary schools, excuse me. In elementary schools, it's a little bit easier to keep students in one classroom. They don't have the wide variety of choices. You are extremely fortunate in the Belmore Merrick Central High School District community to have the number of choices in your students' schedule. Just to run some of those down, in 7th grade, students have 3 choices for mathematics, 2 choices for science, 4 choices for foreign language or world language, 4 choices for music, 2 choices for technology, 2 choices for home and careers, and there's 3 actual choices for their reading and writing selection. So when you put that all together mathematically, because I'm a bit of a math nerd, there's over 1,000 permutations of schedules. So being able to keep students in one class is pretty much impossible. Very student-specific classes, obviously students would have to change no matter what for lunch, phys ed, for music, for home and careers, for technology, science classes have to be in science rooms. So even those in the bare minimum would have to change classes. So being in a middle school, having students stay in one location, of course, given the number of choices and permutations of schedules, makes it impossible for students to stay put in one classroom for the entire school day. This next question, will there be cohorts? Again, that kind of goes back to the question I just answered. It pretty much is virtually impossible. I really tried to break down the school in cohorts. Cohorts means that kids would have the same exact schedule. There's just not enough students that have the same exact schedule that we could do the whole building that way. It becomes an absolute impossibility to actually create cohorts based on those over 1,000 permutations. Will devices be provided for all students? In our school district, in the Belmore Merrick Central High School District, there are 5,000 students approximately, and we do not have 5,000 devices, nor in today's climate where everybody's scrambling for devices, would we be even able to secure 5,000 devices to be able to provide one to every single student. So that is not a possibility. However, just like we did in the spring, for those families that are struggling and have a need for a device at home, maybe they don't have one, or for some reason they're running short on something, reach out. We will address those families that do have a need and get them the technology they need to make sure that their children are successful. Here at Grand Avenue, the contact for that would be your 7th grade assistant principal, happens to be in charge of technology as well. That's Mr. Riccardi. So if you are one of those families that is struggling with access to a device for your child to work at home, please feel free to reach out and he will assist you in making that happen. So let's move on to some procedures and protocols. Obviously, lots of things are going to have to change here at Grand Avenue, starting with entering the building. Students and faculty alike, actually all summer long, myself, my custodial team, my secretarial team, and even my security guards, all have to answer a number of screening questions before they even get to the doors of the building. They are questions that were put forth by the CDC and the Nassau County Department of Health. We didn't come up with these questions by ourselves. There are 4 quick questions. I just want to share them with you so you actually know what we're talking about. And they're pretty simple and they're pretty quick. Have you had any COVID-19 symptoms? Number 2, have you had a positive COVID test within the last 14 days? Number 3, contact with someone with COVID within the last 14 days. I feel like I'm doing the top 10 list. Number 4, have you traveled internationally or from a state with widespread community transmission within the last 14 days? And of course, we would get a list of those out to you. And then the last question was, do you have a temperature over 100 degrees Fahrenheit? And that would be to your knowledge when you filled that out. we are actually answering those questions on a website. We're all logging onto a website, and when we do so and we hit submit, we actually get this screen, if you look at your screen now, on our phones. So today was my admission screen. It's Wednesday, August 19th, and today's color of the day was purple. Each day the color changes. So as I approach the door, I actually hold my phone up. It displays the display that you have in front of you, and the person inside knows that we did that screening app or that screening questionnaire online, and they then let us in, at which time they take our temperatures. And temperatures are going to be taken here at Grand and across the district of every student, staff member that comes in. So temperature checks have been taken all summer and will continue to be done so with everybody that enters the building. We actually are in the process of purchasing these new temperature takers or thermometers. They're actually wall mounted, and they actually take the temperature from your wrist. They are quite accurate based on all of the literature that was provided to us, and they are pretty quick. The screen actually turns green or turns red based on the temperature that's taken at the time. And the device is scheduled to be able to process approximately 50 students in a given minute coming into school, provided the line moves at a typical a rapid pace, but of course maintaining that social distance. So we do the screening, we come in, and then we do temperatures, and that's where we're going to need some help from parents. Those screenings, we are going to provide that website and that screening app to families to do. We would certainly hope that parents are doing that with their children. It would certainly expedite students coming in the building if that was done before they even left the house and they just left the screen saved on their phone. As they walked up, they could just actually activate their phone, show us, and keep going in, instead of students trying to do it on the spot. Now, that does not mean, I know there are some families out there that do not want their child to have a smartphone, and that's totally fine. That is not a judgment on anybody. That's a family decision. If somebody chooses to not have their child have a smartphone, there's two ways to address that. Families or students can print out these questionnaires at home, fill them out and bring them in if they so choose to do it that way. Or those particular students could actually answer the questions on site. We'll have a separate little spot for them to do so they can simply walk up, answer those 5 questions, take their temperature, and then proceed through as well. However, obviously, those students, or if we can get a majority of the students to walk in and simply show the color, getting those 900 students in here in the morning and to where they need to go and still maintain distance, using that app would expedite that exponentially for us here at Grand Avenue. Answering yes to any screening question or displaying a symptom upon entry will need to be, students will need to see a healthcare provider for a follow-up. Ladies and gents, we don't profess to be doctors here. We don't make judgments. If students are displaying a few of the symptoms, we will simply just ask you to bring your child to a healthcare provider for some follow-up. That healthcare provider at that time will make a determination if your child needs to go for a COVID test and either administer the test or send you to it, or they'll write you a note to have your child return back to school. Either is fine, but we would rather a healthcare provider make that determination rather than myself or someone else. And of course, you'll see I have used hand sanitizer. That's going to be pretty much threaded throughout everything we do here, every time kids move, and yeah, you'll see it on a couple of slides. Please note, detailed entry and dismissal information will be sent at a later date. Ladies and gents, as I said, we're bringing in over 900 students in a morning. There will be some specific instructions with times and entrances and buses and this and that. And there's quite a bit to it, and getting into that right this moment when we're still trying to finalize a few last minute plans with that isn't appropriate. So please be on the lookout for some mailings and some emails that have a more detailed entry procedure when it comes time, a little bit closer to school. some procedures and protocols continued. Traveling through hallways. We are going to be putting some markings on the floor. They're actually little arrows. They'll be every 10 feet, something akin to what you would see a white dotted line on a highway to delineate lanes. They will be just a few feet off the wall. Since students are not using lockers, that will have our traffic pattern. Everybody staying to the right in both directions, to the right of those arrows, maintaining that 6-foot distance in the hallways that we're trying to strive for as much as we possibly can while we're here in the building. So those markings will delineate kind of lanes every 10 feet, little arrows, cute little Belmont Merrick logo on them, just to keep as a visual reference. We have designated up and down staircases. If you have older children that came here, you know we always had a few up and down staircases. We've now had to unfortunately designate all staircases with either up or down designations. They will be clearly marked. There will be up, arrows going up or arrows going down. And that's again, just to maintain that students aren't going directly almost shoulder to shoulder with each other on some of those staircases going in opposite directions. It will help maintain a distance while they are traveling through. Humanities blocks teachers. With moving through the hallway in an effort to minimize the number of students, if I go back to those cohorts, where I wasn't able to create cohorts of students staying in place for the entire day, our humanities blocks actually make a very natural opportunity for students to stay in their classroom for 2 consecutive periods. Every student has a humanities block in their schedule where they take English and social studies back to back, or vice versa, social studies and English. So in those blocks, the teachers will move classrooms and the students will stay put for 2 periods, thereby reducing, even on the lowest period, 100 students from traveling in the hallway during that period. And those classes are traditionally located up in our 200 even wing, which is a very congested wing. So reducing 100 students out of that hallway and having just simply 2 teachers move will completely change how that looks up in that hallway. It actually makes a lot of sense and was a small outgrowth of that cohorting type question that came from parents. So we're happy to be able to do that. We are also working towards grade level, there goes my light again. We are working towards grade level bell transitions. So we are trying to figure that out. We need to make sure that where students are leaving and where they're going will be available. So that means that classes would be somewhat grade specific, but how that would look would be the bell would ring and let's say the 7th grade moves first. So we might use about 3 or 4 minutes for 7th grade students to move, thereby cutting the building number of students in half. They would go to class. And then a few minutes later, the 8th grade bell would ring and then they would go to class. Again, trying to minimize the number of students in the hallway. So we'll reduce by 100 or so for the humanities blocks, and then we can hopefully cut that down by doing grade level transitions. And obviously, we need to keep our distance no matter how we're moving throughout the building. Big question, classrooms. So hand sanitizing stations, the little pumps have been installed on the wall of every single classroom in this building, actually throughout this entire district. So there's one in every single classroom. There's also several in the hallway, every maybe 20 to 30 feet in the hallway. Our cafeterias, our gym, our main office, you'll see them on the hallway walls pretty much throughout and in every single classroom. So our procedure will be for anyone entering and exiting a classroom on the way in, they'll hit the pump, they'll sanitize up, and they'll take a seat. At the end of the period, before they walk out into the hallway, once again, hit the pump and sanitize on the way out. We're going to try to promote students sanitizing their hands as much as possible throughout the day. And kind of making it a routine makes it a much simpler way to take a look at it. While in class, every single desk will have a plastic barrier on it. Masks will have to be worn, obviously, from the minute a student either gets to their bus stop on the bus or gets out of their car. Getting here in the morning, masks must be worn by faculty, students, and staff alike at all times when they're on Belmore Merrick property. Wipes will be in classrooms, and a student can always avail themselves to grab a wipe and wipe something down if they feel that they want to further enhance what they believe needs to be wiped down. Classrooms, we have actually eliminated additional or ancillary furniture that was in classrooms. Sometimes there were extra bookcases or file cabinets or maybe a table or such. We've actually removed as much furniture as we possibly can to be able to maximize the spacing for all of our students. So student desks will start about 7 feet off of the front wall to give the teacher an area to teach without encroaching our students. Student desks will then be spread out. In that first 6 feet, they will have a simple one desk instead of some teachers may have shared rooms, so they had 2 or 3 teacher desks in there. Those have been eliminated, so each room will have 1 teacher desk, 1 computer cart. That way we have the maximized space to spread out students as much as possible. Under the CDC and Department of Health guidelines, the recommendations and protocols that they've put in place that we have to adhere to is masks and barriers or 6 feet. Since some of those spaces in classes will not be able to get to 6 feet, that's why we have to have masks and barriers. So it's mask and barriers or 6 feet. So that's how we are addressing and adhering to the recommendations of those governing bodies. Which brings us to masks. I'm sure some of your heads have been really wrapped around because I've only glossed over masks. Masks and face coverings, as I said, all faculty, staff, and students must wear masks. Okay, the mask must cover the nose and mouth. So it can't have that whole little thing where you're seeing some people just leave it down here. No good, has to cover the nose and mouth. And I just held it up. If for some reason, listen, we do have middle school students and everybody's human. If a student or staff member forgets it in their car or whatever, took 3 steps out, mom pulled away, and now they're in panic mode, we have ordered thousands of these disposable masks because forgetting it is not an option. So we will have masks available outside as students are walking in. They'll be available throughout the building in all classrooms. If a student forgets, loses, it breaks, whatever the story may be, we have additional disposable masks that they can avail themselves to if needed. Bathrooms. A lot of questions have come in about bathrooms, how we're going to clean them, how we're going to address who goes in them and such. Schedule to provide for cleaning actually becomes extremely natural here in the middle school. We actually have 4 distinct wings in our building. We have 2 even hallways and 2 odd hallways, since we have even and odd periods. Periods 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9, the odd bathrooms will be open. Periods 2, 4, 6, and 8, the even hallway bathrooms will be open. On those alternate periods, when they're actually closed, our custodial team is going to go in, clean, and sanitize those bathrooms so they can be ready to go for that next period and give it an adequate drying time and such. But we wanted to make sure that those locations where students may be sitting and touching things, we could fully sanitize several times throughout the day, as much as we possibly could. So we've made that schedule to make sure that that would happen. Assigned outside of each one of those bathrooms will be a security aide or one of our teachers assigned. They'll be assigned there for a few purposes. They will limit the number of students allowed in. We, of course, don't want to have 6, 7 students in a bathroom at the same time. That certainly seems counterintuitive when we're trying to keep as much spacing as we possibly can. So they'll limit the number to just a few students in there at a time. They will be taking the names of the students that are entering the bathroom at that given time in between, for each given period. And that's, of course, because if for some reason we do have to get contacted by the CDC or the Department of Health, and we are trying to assist those agencies in some sort of tracing, we would have an adequate record or accurate, I shouldn't say adequate, accurate record of students that entered the bathroom at any given time. So that would help with that. Backpacks and drawstring bags. Again, a good number of questions about backpacks and drawstring bags. Traditionally here in the middle school, we did not allow backpacks and we only would have drawstring bags. But as I mentioned earlier, without lockers, that seems counterintuitive to have everybody's belongings just in a drawstring bag. So this year we are allowing backpacks to carry our belongings. But again, I certainly just need to, from parent to parent, ask you to, try to eliminate the backpack that might look like the one that someone would wear going up Mount Kilimanjaro. Sometimes we tend to get a little overzealous in what we purchase. The backpack exceeds the size of our child. So please, not the rolling ones that look like luggage. Those are counterintuitive as well. So if we could get, just normal backpacks to carry our belongings, we are going to do our best here. We've spoken to teachers about streamlining and sharing binders and such, so students aren't required to have 8 different binders and 27 folders and 16 packs of colored pencils and who needs crayons and who needs all this other stuff. We're going to streamline down the supply lists. So it might just be an AM binder and a PM binder and just a couple of folders and maybe a few things to write with. So we're doing our part here to try to minimize what we have to give students. So if you could help out with the size of the backpack, that would be tremendously appreciated. If textbooks have to be distributed, we're going to try to give you those textbooks to bring home, just one time. So the student can leave that textbook at home so they don't have to carry it back and forth and make those backpacks look like a giant accordion, or have the poor youngsters wearing a backpack that's way in the back like this. So we'll bring those back. In the classrooms, we're not going to be having students share textbooks. So if we have something that needs to be done from a textbook, either photocopies will be made, or they will be scanned and shared with the kids, or it will be up on the smart board. A plethora of different things will be done, but just so you know, they won't be sharing textbooks in the classrooms. Some questions that came in specifically about our procedures and protocols. What if my child doesn't have a phone to complete the screening? I think I addressed that a little bit earlier. Doesn't make a big deal. You can either print out the form and fill it out and bring it in, or if that child doesn't have a phone and they get here, we can certainly ask those questions on site and they can enter. But obviously everybody's got to enter the building with a mask before they get here. Who is going to do the screening? Simply put, everyone. No, I'm going to need quite a few people. Obviously, we have 900 students coming in the morning. So the administrative team, myself and the 2 assistant principals, we do have 2 nurses on staff here at Grand Avenue, so they will be helping. Our athletic trainer that is traditionally here after school, and since we aren't opening with sports starting right away, she will be here, or he will be here in the morning helping us with temperatures. Our athletic coordinator for the building, since again has some free time, the athletic coordinator is going to be helping us out with the screenings. And we have spoken to the high schools to utilize their additional security staff, since they start a little bit earlier than us. After they finish the screenings there, some of them will probably come here and assist us with screenings as well. So quite a number of people will be helping out with doing the screenings. What device will be used for the temperatures? I showed you a picture of it before, the wrist temperature taker. However, we also have those little handheld ones. You've probably seen all over the place. I hate to actually say that it kind of looks like a gun, but it kind of has that little pistol grip. We have those as backups, but they all are contactless temperature taking devices. So nobody has to touch your child in order to take their temperature. Will people be in hallways monitoring masks and distance? Absolutely. Our security team will be in the hallways. Our administrative team will be in the hallways. Teachers will be in the hallways. And we will all, try to make sure that we're in that center lane to try to make sure the students stay to the outside into those lanes that we've crafted with the stickers on the floor and such like that. we are going to have to be vigilant. There's no two ways about it. Some of these procedures, we kind of have no choice but to really take a hard line. Masks have to be worn, distance has to be maintained. So there'll be quite a few people out there to make sure that happens. What happens to those that remove their face mask? And I probably should have mentioned this before when I talked about masks. As I said, we're going to be taking a hard line on having to wear the mask. We have to wear the masks. That's a guideline put forth by people well above me. Those are from CDC and Department of Health officials, and that's a guideline that we have no choice but to adhere to. But what I really think would be super important to start now with our children, and this is where I could really use that partnership and the power of this amazing community, is to kind of flip the script on how we talk about masks and how we get our kids to think about masks. If we start talking about you have to wear a mask, that have to term just makes it sound so bad. It puts it in a light that makes it almost adversarial. And that's not how we want things here in the middle school. And I don't think that's what you want for your kids. Quite frankly, I wear my mask because my dad has stage 4 cancer. And I don't want to bring that home to him. I'm also a volunteer fireman and I'm exposed there. So I wear my mask there because I don't want to bring it home to him. And I have 2 high school aged kids, a junior and a senior starting next year. And I don't want to bring it home to them. So if we could possibly tap into the emotion of the community and the emotion of our kids, much like we do with Relay for Life. If anybody's participated in that, they have those little luminary bags around, and it's for cancer awareness and raising money for research. People write on the bags, I'm walking in tonight's Relay for Life for my grandma or for my friend or for this. If we could tap into the kids' social emotional feelings about this and maybe identify somebody that they might want to be protecting, whether it's themselves or their family or an extended family member, I think we'll be a lot more successful in getting kids to wear masks because it has a purpose versus a mandate. A purpose makes things a little bit more palatable in these really difficult times. It's not easy to wear a mask. It's not easy to wear a mask all day. I've been doing it a lot. And when it's not easy, if we could take that approach, I think we'll be exponentially more successful with our kids. And in that really nice, heartfelt moment, my light went off, and now I have to wave like an idiot to make it go back on. So that's what we're doing with masks. Who will clean the desks and barriers between classes? The simple answer to that, nobody. We have, as I've mentioned a number of times, over 900 students in the building, which means we have well over 1,000 desks in the building. In a 4-minute passing period, I wish I had the staff. I really do. I wish I had the staff to run in there and clean 1,000 desks in 4 minutes. But I simply don't. I don't have that kind of manpower. As I said, procedures are put in place for kids to sanitize their hands in and out. And there are wipes there if students feel that they want to wipe down their desks. And that's totally fine. If a family wants to give their child a specific wipe because they want to make sure it's the wipe that they deem appropriate, I cannot provide them certain wipes. There's only certain things on our accepted list. But if you want to send your kid in with Lysol wipes or brand name Clorox wipes or whatever you feel comfortable with and you want them to wipe it down with what you give them, that's totally fine too. I just can't hand it to them. We have our own wipes that they can use that are disinfectant wipes. And we also have spray bottles in every class with paper towels so they can do a quick spray and a wipe down if they like. So there are ways that students can clean those things down in between periods if they feel they need to do so, and that's totally fine and always encouraged. So I wish I had the staff to do 1,000 desks, but you'll learn very much about Mr. Conti. I will not lie to you and tell you something that's just blatantly not true. So that's where we are with that. Can my child bring their own wipes? I actually just said that. When can my child take a mask break? So mask breaks, to try to formalize a mask break at a designated time and space is a little bit counterintuitive because not everybody's ready for a break or needs a break at the same exact time. There are obviously some times throughout the day where students can take their masks off. Obviously, if they're outside for gym and they're spaced for PE and they're spaced out appropriately, they'll probably take their masks off. During lunch and recess, where they're outside and they're spaced, obviously they can take their masks off. But if they're sitting in a class and they're just getting overwhelmed and they just need that minute to take a break and they just need to get their mask off, if it's during a class period and there's no students in the hall, they can simply, just like they would ask a teacher to go to the bathroom, just say, hey, Mr. Conti, I need to take a quick break out in the hallway. They'll step out into the hallway. They can slip off their mask because there's nobody out there. Take a minute or so, catch their breath, get some nice air. There are ventilation, there are units in the ceilings of the hallways to make sure that air is being circulated as well. And they can take their break at that point when nobody's around. But it's going to be a little bit better, I believe, if we're having students do that in that fashion than we're trying to schedule it. And it's impossible to try to schedule 900 people to all need a break at the same exact time. Technology use in the district. Some of you that don't have older children that have come through the district, you may be new to Infinite Campus. A few weeks back, you should have received a packet in the mail about logging into Infinite Campus and getting yourself hooked up so you can see your children's attendance and grading throughout the school year. Located in there is also places for your emergency contacts, which of course is significantly more important this year than ever before. So please, if you haven't done so, please look for that mailing and make sure that you are on Infinite Campus, that your contact information is up to date. So if we need to grab a hold of you, we can. One of the challenges we faced in the spring when we were doing some our remote learning or alternate virtual learning model was that we had a lot of fractured different types of softwares going on out there. So we have moved to, as best we can, move to one platform whereby all faculty will be on Google Classroom. Will be the primary platform for accessing classes. Teachers could possibly use an additional platform, but we have something called a single sign-on. So when we sign on to Google, they will all be in there. You won't have to sign into 6 different things. When you sign into one, you'll be in all of them, and that'll make it much easier for students to access those different software platforms, for parents. So you're in once, you don't have to try to get in and out of multiple things. So we're hoping and excited that we took that on. There's a technology FAQ and resources available on the district website to support students and parents' questions and concerns. If you haven't been to our district's website, it is chock full of tons of information and links. So right now, if you go to the Belmont Merrick Central High School District website, scrolling on a marquee right on the top in big bold red letters is a COVID something, or I can't remember exactly the verbiage. But if you click on that marquee that says COVID something, it will bring you to a COVID page with all sorts of FAQs and different emails that went out and letters, and a whole plethora of stuff that is really, really important. If you've missed anything, it's usually there, but that's a great resource. The FAQ that's actually there does get updated every couple days. So as questions come in, we try to get that put in there. And checking that actually helps minimize some of the emails that we get. With 900 parents, you can only imagine how many emails do come in a given day. And I do work really hard to try to answer those. But sometimes that information has already been put out in some of these FAQs. So if we could kind of work together to get through those and be on the same page, that would, of course, be helpful. So health and nurses. I mentioned earlier that we do have 2 nurses on staff here. We are very fortunate. A few years ago, the Board of Education put a second one in the building because of the needs and the size of all of our buildings to do that. And over the summer, all nurses throughout the district were trained at the John Hopkins Symptoms Recognition and Training course. So they are up to date with recognizing and tracing procedures that are put in place, and they did that through Johns Hopkins. We follow the CDC and Nassau County Department of Health guidelines. So I have a host of questions about being informed and who gets told and how that all happens. What happens is we get informed from the CDC, we follow their direction, we assist those two organizations and work hand in hand with them, providing and doing anything and everything we can to help them and us keep your kids safe. We're providing PPE and cleaning products to our nurses so they can keep that nursing suite as clean and sanitized as humanly possible. Something new to our school district this year, and of course the Grand Avenue, we had to designate an isolation room. Students that get designated with some possible symptoms, and again I say possible because it could be a migraine producing some of the symptoms, or it could be COVID, and sometimes we're not sure. But if they've been identified because they are trained in symptom recognition, our nurses may feel the need to put a student in an isolation room until such time as a family member can pick them up. So a little bit different this year. Generally, we would have that family member come into the building, sign in, get into the nurse, and then take their child home. To try to limit the number of people that enter and exit the building, and for their exposure, for their children's exposure, for the exposure of the people here, we're going to try to walk those students out from the health office. You'll give us a quick ring. Maybe you'll ring the buzzer outside and just say, I'm here to pick Johnny up. We'll know that you're coming and we will walk Johnny out to you. Again, to just minimize contact and exposure for you and for everyone else. Some health and nursing questions that have come in. I've addressed a bunch threaded through it, but will everyone be informed when a student is sent home with symptoms? Simple answer to that is no. Again, we aren't sure what those symptoms are. They could be a number of different things. It would be completely inappropriate, of course, with some HIPAA laws to put out a blast statement that somebody went home. But as soon as somebody is identified by the Department of Health, they give us a call. We then work with them if there was a positive case to help give them the names of every single person that's potentially in contact. And we help actually sometimes contacting those people and or providing the names and numbers for the Department of Health to make those contacts. So we do work in tandem with them to do that. Will the school be contact tracing if there is a confirmed case? We don't do the actual tracing, but we actually give the information to the tracers. So again, those organizations will contact us, and then we provide that information. We work with them hand in hand. God forbid there is that case that we need to identify. Who needs to quarantine if there is a confirmed case? That's a good question, and that's a very simple answer. We don't here in Belmont Merit determine who needs to quarantine. We're not the medical professionals. The Department of Health and the CDC, as they do their tracing, they will give us guidelines and they will help us to disseminate that information as to who may or may not need to quarantine during the contact tracing conversations. That information would be disseminated. Again, that's kind of, we take the direction from the medical professionals when and if that does take place. How long does somebody have to quarantine? I can pretty much refer to the first 3 bullets there. That's again up to the CDC. Sometimes it's a short, quick thing, and other times it's 14 days, 10 to 14 days, up to the medical professionals. If my child is sent home with possible COVID symptoms and is deemed to have something else or not COVID related, what do they need to do to return? Well, if they came to school and they were actually sent home with presenting some possible COVID related symptoms, we're going to recommend that you see a healthcare professional. I think obviously in today's day and age, you're going to be pretty willing to want to make sure that your kid sees a healthcare professional. If the healthcare professional deems the child to have a migraine or allergies or something completely unrelated, they're going to write you a simple note and you'll bring that note back to school. However, if your child is then deemed to need a COVID test, they will give you the proper information to get that test. It will be that up to them to determine. If you're getting a test, obviously you're going to need to stay home until the results of such test comes back. So if it's something unrelated, that doctor's going to, or healthcare professional is going to give you a note to return, or they're going to tell you to go get that test. And that will be up to the determination of the healthcare professional. Lunch. Seating in lunch is going to be very, very important. As I mentioned earlier, classroom spacing, we have masks and barriers. So obviously you cannot wear a mask in lunch and still eat. That doesn't make sense. So in order to maintain a priority of health and safety, we have to make sure we ensure 6 foot spacing. So there is no way, even with 2 cafeterias, that I could feed 300 students the way we always did and maintain 6 foot spacing. So lunch is going to look significantly different. We are going to use alternate locations. We will have some students in the cafeteria. We may have some students at desks in our auxiliary gym. We are actually talking about the potential of making a split lunch period where half the students scheduled for 5th period lunch would go to the auditorium for the first half of the period, and others would go to those locations. They would eat and then switch so we can maintain the spacing there. We, of course, in good weather days, are going to encourage kids to eat outside if they so choose. We've always had recess here. I shouldn't say always. In the past few years, we've had recess here. And it's been working out wonderful for our kids. It gives them a chance to get out in some fresh air. And of course, we're going to encourage that as well. If they'd like to step outside, they can head outside and maintain their distance out there, slip their masks off and eat there. Simply put, we are going to do whatever we have to do. However, movement inside a cafeteria or alternate location is going to have to be restricted. With students without their masks on, I can't have kids getting up every 2 minutes to walk over and put things in the trash and things of that nature. So things will look a little different. You know, maybe we're going to have to eat in our space at that 6 foot spacing. And then at the end of the period, we all go table by table or row by row or however we want to say it on their way out of the cafeteria and deposit their trash on the way out versus having that movement. I would hate to have kids walking past other kids in a close proximity when their masks are off. So we're going to have to be a little bit more vigilant and make sure that doesn't take place. Food options. Obviously you can bring lunch from home, and in this light, the timer, come on. So food options you can bring from home, of course. And in this particular year in a pandemic, I would encourage families to do that more often than not. It certainly will help on a number of levels. Obviously, you are in complete control of what your child ingests, and you will have no questions to ask. It will also lessen the lines or the way we have to, or the number of things that we have to prepare for students to pick up. We are providing lunch. It can be purchased here if you so choose, and it's going to be what we're calling grab and go. The days of grabbing a tray and pointing to the things as they go down the line that they want on their tray are going to be gone. They will be prepackaged meals. They will be prepackaged by our own staff. Like, we're not buying these prepackaged things from a company or something like that where it's all like that. They will be, provided. They will probably be bagged. There will be probably more cold options at this point. There may be a few things that we can do in there that can stay warm, and maybe some wrapped up tin foil, like a small Hero or something. So those options will take place, but there will be fewer general options. There may be only 2 choices. You can have either this or this, where we used to have a whole host of things to choose from. So we've had to streamline that. Because we can't have the big lines. We don't want students waiting. We don't want students congregating on a line. So to expedite everything and maintain those distances, we have moved to this grab and go. Those options will of course be online under our lunch menu section on our website. So if you want to check that out when we get closer to school, Ms. Finelli will of course have that posted so you know what is available to purchase each and every day. Physical education, on good weather days, we're going to be outside. As a matter of fact, our students are going to report to their teachers outside. They're not even going to enter the gym. They'll walk right out the gymnasium door under the direction of our security aides to the teachers that'll have a pre-designated location. And then they're going to go to a safe location onto one of our fields where they can be appropriately spaced. They're going to be participating in fitness activities. The days of having the simple pickup basketball game during gym doesn't meet the guidelines. So we're not allowed at this time to do things like that. So they will be participating in some fitness activities that are better suitable for this kind of activity. Movement is going to be restricted inside. In PE, if we have to be inside, we are not using the locker rooms, so there is no changing. I don't want to send 70 kids into a locker room to have to change clothing in a close proximity. That does not make sense. It's counterintuitive. So there is not going to be any changing, and we're not going to be using the locker rooms. A number of questions came in about sports. Belmont Merit staff and administration do not get to choose if we have sports or not. New York State and the local Nassau County governing body called Section 8 make those determinations, and we're waiting for their final decision. Right now, we are pushed off until September 1st, and we're waiting for their final decision if we're going to go ahead at that time or if it's going to be pushed off later in the year. During inclement weather days, students may be inside the gym, spaced out, obviously at a good distance. In order to maintain that distance, I may have to utilize the gymnasium and the auditorium if there is a high number of students scheduled for physical education that particular period. In either case, again, they'll be doing some fitness for life activities or lessons. Sometimes during those days, we might have to do a lesson. So we're learning a little bit more about what it takes to be fit for life and how we can change our thought and behavior for fitness for life activities. A good number of questions have come in about our performing arts. Performing arts, we're talking about our music program, headed up by our director of the Fine and Performing Arts, Ms. Cheryl Fontana. And she has come up with a really, working with our team here, came up with some really great ideas. We're in a district that really truly embodies what the importance of the fine and performing arts, and it's something you should be proud of in this district. A lot of districts have made major cuts in these areas over the past 10 years or so, and it truly does add to the educational experience of kids. So in band, because the numbers are big and under bad guidelines from the CDC and Department of Health, they want a 12-foot spacing. So the band room is not big enough to fit a full band class at 12-foot spacing. We are fortunate here at Grand because the band room and vocal music room are pretty much joining with some double doors. So we will have both rooms going at the same time with band. We'll have a teacher assistant in one room with the band teacher in the other. They'll be able to just go through the double doors and switch while they're being simulcasted into the second room. So they can pretty much be conducting band in two rooms at one time using technology and the assistance of a teacher assistant. We'll be able to tackle that. A little bit different, but a nice way to keep the program intact without degrading what students get to choose from. Vocal music is another area in the performing arts where 12-foot spacing is mandatory. So all vocal music classes have been relocated to the auditorium. There will be little circles, little stickers on the floor. Again, Belmont Merit logo. They'll have a number 12 on them, so students will know exactly where the 12-foot spacing seats are for students to maintain that distance and be appropriately spaced. Last but not least, we have orchestra in our performing arts program. They are traditionally assigned to our vocal music room and orchestra, since you can continue to wear a mask. 6 foot spacing with a mask is appropriate for orchestra. It has to be 6 foot because there is not a barrier there. So we're using 6 foot and a mask instead of the barrier. For the most part, we should be able to get all of our orchestra classes into that vocal music room. If for some reason it doesn't work out based on how many students are coming in or availing themselves of the alternate virtual learning model, we may have to spill over to the band room, much like we did band into the vocal room on those given periods. But I think we have it worked out at this point where orchestra will be in the one room. But either way, we have that other option that we've figured out already. Transportation. Buses are still provided for those students living more than 1 mile. Those students that are scheduled to get a bus will be getting a bus pass probably by the beginning of next week. They're going out shortly. I saw the lady stuff in the envelopes before we got on here. But again, that's only for those students that exceed 1 mile from Grand Avenue. And that is not by means of the Waze app or Google. It is a straight line on Google Earth. I don't make those rules. It actually is determined by our central office and the gentleman that runs the transportation office. They basically draw a mile, make a circle, and everybody that exceeds that can get a bus, excuse me. As I mentioned earlier, masks will be mandatory. They're actually going to be mandatory from the time students get to the bus stop. Obviously mandatory from the minute they get on the bus. The bus is an extension of the school, as is the bus stop, so the masks are mandatory. Windows are going to be left open, at least partially, to maintain constant fresh airflow in those school buses, just as another means of keeping fresh air circulating. We're going to fill those buses starting in the rear. So the first students on the bus will be sent to the seats in the rear of the bus. As they exit the bus, when they get here, they're going to leave the bus, obviously exiting from the front, again, so students are not walking past other students. So again, limit the contact that students would have or be in proximity of other students. We will, of course, encourage siblings to sit together, again, thereby producing the most amount of spacing that they possibly can on the school bus. I mentioned earlier, the Director of Transportation is Mr. Tom Volpe. He works out of our central office. I did get a number of questions on transportation, how many kids are on a bus. I just sent out about 6 times because the link didn't work and then I made a mistake. And so if you got 3 emails to me, take 1, take 2, I apologize. It's a little stressful and things got a little whacked out this morning. I apologize. But the survey went out today. The mailing's going out as well. And you can expect further communication from his office in the upcoming days and weeks. So here's the last one I think everybody's been waiting for, and I put it last on purpose. 6th, 7th grade orientation. Are we having it? Yes, we're going to have an in-person 7th grade orientation. Can it look exactly the way it's always looked? Definitely not. We will be breaking it up into multiple sessions so we can make much smaller groups. I don't want to bring the full group in here at once, especially when these students have not been in the building and don't necessarily know their way around. So we will be breaking it up into multiple sessions. It is still going to take place on the scheduled day on the calendar. We will have to, again, from that day, start the procedures as if school is starting. So the things that we talked about way in the beginning of this webinar before you fell asleep is we're going to have the students doing those screenings. They're going to have to wear masks. We will have to take their temperatures. Social distancing rules will have to apply, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Hand wipes, sanitizing. As in the next couple of days, when we fully make a determination as to how many groups and what those times those groups will be, I will be getting that information out to you in a hard copy mailing sent home. One other question keeps coming up about when will students get their schedules. Unfortunately, this year, sending out schedules is going to be significantly delayed, probably not until honestly a few days before school starts. And the reason for that is for the rebalancing based on number of students staying home. I don't want to have classes of, a high number when I could have rebalanced it to make them both better to space out throughout the school year. So as the survey is completed tomorrow, I think tomorrow is the last day parents can put in their final choices if they want students to be remote. So if those students come out, I'll rebalance, but I do need some time to do that. So I'm going to need a week or so to do that before I can actually send out schedules. So they won't be going out until much later than we traditionally would be sending those out. I hope you can understand and be patient with that we're doing that and it's being delayed, obviously, because we want to protect your children the best way we possibly can. As we look ahead, communication. Please look for emails. Please read through the emails thoroughly. I do get a good number of questions coming back about things that are definitely included in the emails. So if you could read those communications thoroughly, it would be greatly appreciated. Again, refer to that district website, the COVID website. Between the website, my communications, a good number of the questions could be answered before that. If they're not, of course, feel free to ask away. That's why we're here, and we welcome those as well. The last but not least, try not to get sick of my emails. I get it. I'm sending them out on behalf of Mr. DiTomaso, Mr. Harrington, transportation, myself, and everybody else. So it does come with my name on everybody's, so I apologize. But please refrain from just hitting that delete button every time you see Mr. Conti hitting delete. If you could take the time to read through those now more than ever, it would be super helpful. It is for yourself and for everybody's safety. I wanted to end up with, listen, despite everything I just went through and the exhausting amount of stuff that we're dealing with, as I said, on a good year, 7th grade parents are nervous about sending their children to school. And I get it. I totally get it. This year more so than ever. But quite frankly, this is a time of year I'm excited. I'm excited to start a new school year. It is a new beginning. It's a new beginning for me. It's a new beginning for kids. It's a new beginning for faculty. It is just a new beginning. No matter what your family chooses for the educational program for your child, whether it's full alternate virtual learning or being here in school, whether we're in hybrid or we're in full, determining on where we are in the process, we want to be here and be your partner in education. We want nothing more than to make your child successful. This is an amazing district. This is an amazing community. We can absolutely do this together. It's been proven time and time again when this community's been hit hard with other catastrophes, they pull together and they make things work. So I'm positive that things are going to work out. A positive outlook, no matter what your choice. Your attitude and our attitude definitely rubs off on our youngsters. And if we're positive, kids will be positive. And that's really where we want to be at for our kids. We don't want to strike fear in them. We want them to be educated. We want them to be powerful with the knowledge they know about what's going on in their communities, whether it's health or otherwise. But to make them fearful of it is counterintuitive. We want them to have a positive outlook on life. Please refrain from social negativity. I need to beg of you of this. We don't always all agree. Everybody has a differing opinion. We are doing our absolute best, and no matter what choice we make, there are other groups that are not going to be happy, and we apologize for that. There is no choice that makes every single person happy every single time. But being negative on social media just breeds more negativity. And that's not what we want for our kids. We want the most positive atmosphere and the most positive community that we possibly can create. This is an amazing community. And I want to thank you from the bottom of our heart for entrusting your kids to us here in the Belmont Merrick Central High School community for educating your child. That partnership and that trust that you put in us to do that for your child is massive, and we take that responsibility extraordinarily serious. I want to thank you for sitting through this very lengthy hour-and-a-half webinar. I want to thank you once again for your participation in your child's education, and have a great day. We look forward to seeing you. We're excited. Enjoy. Just as a reminder, this was recorded, and I will be posting it up. If some friends and neighbors did not get to see it, I'll get that email link out to you later today. Thanks, and have a great day, guys.